I mean, those are things you can't really be thinking about. You have to focus on the next game and bite off every game as it comes. I mean, we can't look in, the crystal ball and forecast this game, that game, and we have a lot of games left, obviously, and just have to focus on each week as it comes and follow our normal process and evaluate the last game and see what we can take from it to learn and get better and take that into training, and then we focus on the next game. It's a long season. Obviously, there'll be ups and downs, and in response to your parity question, when you look at New York Red Bulls losing to Philly Union 3-0 on the road. You look at Orlando getting crushed by Houston, and you look at KC losing to Minnesota. I mean, right there you can see that anything can happen in this league, and especially on the road, it's difficult for the best teams in the league. To this point, all lost big, on the road. You got to put it behind you. You can't, obviously. Lose sight of and perspective on it's one game and it's 3 points, and the fact we had a few guys out, that always plays into it. The early goal is a big part of the game. Obviously, makes it difficult on the road when you concede 7 minutes in. I thought the game completely changed from there. In analyzing the game, I thought we were fine to start the game. There were no issues. Our shape was good, and then we concede off a throw-in. We throw it in, Darren loses it, we kind of get beat, wide, and, miss clearances. We don't clear the ball out, and, now we're down. And then from there, I thought we lost composure. I thought we lost our shape. And it was only the third time in 10 games that we've been down with the first goal. So the positive is we've scored the first goal 7 times. The negative is we didn't manage it very well. In the other 2 games, Philly and Houston, when we were down early, we kept our composure, we kept our shape, maintained discipline. We got on the ball, and we ended up leveling the score in both those games. In this game, I thought we opened up our lines too much, too early. We didn't keep possession, and then we conceded another goal. And now it really becomes difficult, down 2-0 on the road, chasing the game. So for me, that was a story. In looking at the start of the game, we're fine. It's just after we conceded, we didn't maintain our composure.
Caleb, obviously you weren't able to add a center back in the window that just closed. Just talk about that, and is that still a goal for the summer window?
Yeah. It's still a goal to add someone in the summer window. I think the goal is to add, someone sooner than that, but we just weren't able to get it done. So move it in the summer, and we'll still be looking to add a central defender piece. That was always the goal following Benga being out with an injury early in the preseason.
How frustrating is that, given maybe you would want someone to have more time to just integrate with MLS and all that?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's a part of the business. If you don't, get a guy sorted out, you don't get him sorted out, and obviously, fortunately, we added Lawrence, because Lawrence is obviously, and Roy Miller, they've stepped in and done a good job overall. Lawrence has played 10 games at center back. We added him to play more holding mid, and he's stepped in and played center back in 10 games, and Roy Miller stepped in when Reggie was out, and we've had our depth tested all year, and it brings more attention to the depth and those losses when you lose. When you win, people forget, that your depth has been tested. So that's certainly more under the microscope when you lose.
Back to the parity question, and I know you don't need coaching tools because you got plenty of them, but the fact that the team can see, like, hey, one misstep and look what can happen in the standings. Yeah. Does that help you motivate the guys, or is it a motivation for the guys to have that table, and one mistake and boom, you see results?
Yeah, I mean, I think they know that. It's a fine line. The margins are very slim in this league. On any given day, they know that. The guys that have been in this league, at least, know that. Anybody can beat anybody, and some of the new guys, sometimes the guys that haven't been in this league, they need to learn that. Sometimes they look at the table, and I think in other leagues they played in, maybe even you're playing a team at the bottom of the table or it's low on the table, it's maybe a little bit easier game. Not in this league. The guys that have been in this league, they know that. Anything can happen any given day, and in this sport, certainly, all it takes is one mistake off a throw-in to completely change the landscape of the game and make it very difficult. You know, when you look at first goals in a game, it's staggering, the percentages in terms of getting points and results when you score the first goal. And that's been a big reason why we've done well. We've scored the first goal 7 times out of 10 games this year, which shows we're up for it, we're ready, we're hungry. And this was the same, except we give up a pretty poor goal off a throw-in.
I'll play the Jamie role here and ask for the updates on Darlington and Valeri.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be coy, but we don't know yet. Valeri did train today, so he's looking likely. But we'll obviously know more as the week goes on. We have 3 more days of training. Darlington didn't train. He did some work on the pitch with Nick Malonis, you know, our director of fitness, sports science. So we'll see. I think we'll know a lot more tomorrow and in the next several days whether or not those 2 guys will be available. But I'd say most likely Valeri is likely, unless, you know, you never know. You have some setbacks, and Darlington, we just don't know yet.
Coming into your next game after a loss, it's obviously important to bounce back. Who do you look to in this side to sort of lead the team in that? Is there anyone in particular who comes to mind?
No, I think it's a collective thing always. You know, obviously top players have their opinions on things, and we discuss these things as a team. Obviously, after the game, you have discussion. You have a discussion after the game. We had a discussion at halftime, but you start to frame, you know, the next week and what went right and wrong, and what that means for the next game, and what that means for training, and what we're going to work on. So those are conversations that we always have, you know, in a team setting and sometimes in individual settings as well. You know, so that happens every single week. You know, I've had some individual conversations already. Obviously, we've had several meetings as a staff to look at the film and discuss kind of what we need to address. And then we've had a team meeting already where we broke down the film. So, and in those discussions, it's a dialogue. You know, it's not a monologue. You know, we talk and we address things, and then we go to the training pitch and sort it out. And some of those things are addressed with personnel always, and they know that. You know, we have a deep team, and we've talked about that. So that means, you know, if guys don't perform, that perhaps if we need to get more out of the game or more out of the team, then we need to make changes. You always have to look at that. You know, when things don't go right, you got to look, okay, what was the reason? You know, was it personnel? Was it system? Was it, you know, just we need to address some things in training that popped up? Was it soccer because mistakes happen? When I looked at the game, poor first goal, but then for me the biggest takeaway was our composure after that. Tactically, we lost shape. We created far too much space in between our back line and our midfield line. When you look at San Jose, they had 6 open play crosses. That's atypical for them. They usually get a lot of width and a lot of crosses. They didn't get a lot wide. They attacked us central in that game, and we weren't compact enough after the goal. Prior to the goal, we were. But after the goal, we weren't. We chased the game kind of too early, and we lost our composure, and we didn't keep possession. So we'll learn from that. You know, and then 2 other games, like I said, where we conceded, we did well. Philly and Houston. This game, we didn't. We didn't keep our composure, and we didn't maintain discipline. We didn't keep a good team shape, and we gave San Jose far too many shots from the center channel.
There were a few guys in the game against San Jose, younger guys who fans might not normally get a look at and got runouts for various reasons. Was there anyone there who maybe showed something late in the game despite the circumstances?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I think it's great for those guys to get a run. You know, obviously, anytime you get a debut of a new player, Victor and Jeremy, it's great to see. You know, these guys haven't had that opportunity, and I'm glad they got rewarded for doing well. I think Victor's worked very hard with T2 in the games he's played there and shown well. And when he's been in training with us, he's worked very hard. And same with Jeremy. Jeremy was out a couple weeks, so that's why he hadn't been playing with T2. But in our trainings, when he was healthy, he had shown very well. But he's kind of third in the depth chart. Sometimes not on the bench, and we need to make sure he continues to get minutes in games, and that's why, like a guy like Victor, Jeremy, Marco, for instance, they seem far away because they're playing with T2. They're really not that far away. We just need to make sure that they're continuing to get time. It does no good for Marco to sit on the bench and never play with the first team. He needs to be getting games every single week if he's not going to start the game. And that's the reason why we have him with T2, not because he's bumped way far away. We just need to keep developing him.
Scouting Atlanta a little bit, I think a lot of people look at expansion teams and think, bottom of the table, right? Not a big threat or anything. Atlanta and Minnesota are both kind of in the middle of the standings, doing a little better than I think a lot of people thought. What is your kind of scouting report on Atlanta? What makes them dangerous for you guys?
Well, listen, they have one of the biggest budgets in the league. And so anytime you spend the amount of money they've spent, they're going to have good players and they're going to have talent. So a little different scenario than a Minnesota, for instance. But Minnesota's kind of done it more as a team lately and done better. But Atlanta, right out of the gate, you saw the talent, and you saw in their manager, Martino, Tata, that they're going to play a very aggressive approach. They're a pressing team, and they want to hit you in transition. And with the talent they have, when they're able to execute that, they're extremely difficult to manage. Last 6 games, they have 1 win, so they've not done quite as good recently. So as that teams are starting to figure out what they're doing, who knows? But what I would say is the 1 win they have in the 6 was on the road at RSL, and they scored 3 goals that game. So they're a dangerous team, really talented, and like I said, the way they play is extremely aggressive, and you have to be aware of their pressing and their transition and their talent.
Tata Martino is obviously a well-known manager in world soccer. I was wondering what your thoughts were on having a guy like him coming to MLS and coaching in the league.
Yeah, I think it's great. Similar to having top players in this league. Anytime we can raise the profile of our league with top players, world-class players, managers that have managed at the highest level, which Martino has, I think it's great for the league. I'm sure he's learning this league and figuring out pretty quickly, like you guys talk about, that anything can happen. It's crazy. I look at the last game with them playing New York FC on a postage stamp field that's so tight. I'm sure he's showing up to the game going, what's going on here, and obviously dealing with the travel. They play New York, and then next week they're flying all the way out to Portland. These are probably things that he hasn't dealt with. They're interesting dynamics that I think make this league very difficult to manage in. And that's why we've seen that with some of the foreign coaches coming in. It's tough. It's not easy, and you have equal talent, and you have rosters. We have one guy making $60,000 and another guy that's in the starting 11 maybe making $4 million. And those are dynamics they don't happen anywhere in any other league in the world. But it's great to have in this league. He's a great coach, and I look forward to the match.
When you talk about parity in the league and having similar talent roster to roster, what do you think separates a good team in maybe the Western Conference versus a team that's not? What's the big thing that separates a team from a good team versus a team that hasn't done as well? And you guys, obviously last week wasn't the result you wanted, but previous to that, you guys have done very well. What is it that maybe has biggest thing that's helped you guys be on the better side of that this year?
The only thing that separates the good teams and the not-so-good teams is points. There's not much that separates. Obviously, talent for sure. You have to look at that. And, usually when you spend more, you get more talent and you have a better chance as a starting point. But then I would say from there, the organization of your team, you know, a clear way of playing system-wise, style-wise, and adaptability. I mean, the teams that are adaptable and, you know, can put out, you know, different types of plans, I think have a better chance to win. And then I would say experience, obviously. You know, guys that have been through, you know, the MLS grind and know the dynamics that I just mentioned. It's different. It's not easy. So I think those are the things. It's talent. It's being organized and perhaps adaptable, and then having experience of dealing with this crazy league.